Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's SAP Community Call about SAP Intelligent RPA. My name is Svea Becker, and I am part of the SAP Community team, and I'm your technical host for today. And I have also great speakers with me. So I have Sathya, Narasimhan, and Chaitanya Priya, Chaitanya Priya and McPhee. So Sathya focuses on driving hyperautomation within SAP's customer space through SAP Intelligent RPA. And Max is a solution manager on the same team, and his focus is on automating procurement processes in Ariba and activating the pre-built bot content from the bot store. Chaitanya Priya is a senior intelligent RPA specialist here at SAP, and she is also a very active member in the SAP community and shares her valuable expert knowledge there and also with us. So welcome, the three of you. I'm really happy to have you here. We have also some support from Julian about the questions. So as I mentioned earlier, you can always submit the questions via the Q&A tool here. When you hover over the bottom of your screen, you see the Q&A, and then you can submit your question. But maybe you also want to speak up at the end of the call and raise your question in person. So this is also possible. So until then, we are looking forward to the presentation. I hand over to Sathya. Welcome. And I put myself on mute and off camera. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Svea. Nice to meet you, everyone in the community. So by the way of quick introduction, I'm the product manager from the RPA team based out of SAP San Francisco Bay Area office. And today, along with Max, I'm really excited to share with you what we have been doing around automating procurement processes and very specifically using Ariba as one of the content application in the automation workflow. So this is exciting because this community probably requires a little overview.
Excuse me, may I interrupt you, Sathya? It's not so good. I cannot understand you very clearly. I don't know if the others have the same. So can you go maybe a little bit closer to the microphone?
Yes, hopefully this is better. If not,
this is much better. This is much better. Thank you, and sorry for interrupting.
Thanks for letting me know. All right. So as I mentioned, this community probably requires little introduction on what SAP's IRPA is. However, I see this as a topic where we are adding more new community members who may be focused and interested around procurement and Ariba related processes. So from that perspective, whether you are a small or a mid-scale company with few dozen procurement or sourcing managers, all the way up to a multinational conglomerate running multiple hundreds of sourcing events with thousands of procurement and sourcing managers. The RPA still provides a very solid value proposition and scales with your business, where we think of the moniker where the IRPA bot works as a digital assistant to your highly valued workforce would still be applicable. And we have seen a lot of examples of that when trying to apply RPA in procurement space with Ariba, meaning your sourcing and procurement managers can leverage the bot that they design in an attended fashion when they need to run automation scenarios, or the entire team or the department can create best practices and run the same bot in an unattended mode, all by just designing once using low-code methodologies and deploying it in multiple different ways. So specifically, right, so in the past few years, we had wonderful opportunities to work across customers, across various geographies, industries, and functional areas. And, we've been kind of making very substantial impact on their businesses by, optimizing their processes, helping reduce errors in their process, also help them to scale. So a particular example I'm really proud of is our work with Zulik Pharma, where the work we started doing with them even before the pandemic hit was very relevant, because when their order volume spiked thousands to 10,000 times, by just leaving their both technology and people infrastructure in place, they were able to successfully meet the growing needs in their order qualification. And we can apply similar scalable bot methodologies in other areas, especially when there is a high stakes, high pressure procurement event. So from that perspective, what we've been focusing on, personally myself and Max, is trying to work with customers who have similar requirements in the Ariba space to jointly define what the success might look like when applying Intelligent RPA with Ariba as one of the applications in the process. So the benefits for applying RPA and Ariba would be a number of different use case domains. First, you can automate any number of manual repetitive tasks in Ariba. In procurement processes, there are a few of those that can be taken care of that goes above and beyond what is available already with Ariba's templates and macro capabilities. And second is there is a constant need to get data into Ariba. So if the integration is not possible, maybe they are using a heterogeneous set of systems and the integration between Ariba and another system may not be available in an API format, or it may not be feasible, meaning the APIs maybe take a little bit of a time to implement, and also the overhead process of maintaining that code could be a kind of a business case killer. But in this case, by using RPA, we can create a robust way to integrate Ariba with other applications, again, when the integration is not possible or not feasible. And then the third use case would be procurement and sourcing can be a very complex workflow process. So being able to work across multiple teams within your organization as well as beyond your company to create really a re-engineered way of sourcing could be another way we could help our customers by applying RPA. And then finally, data and analytics is a key component for the continued journey to improve the efficiency of your procurement process, perhaps by leveraging ML and AI. And one way to do that is to go beyond the analytical capabilities that may be already available in Ariba and leverage the data sets to be able to answer very critical questions. And RPA can be used in this instance to reliably take the information from Ariba and do external customized post-processing specific to your business needs. And we will see some examples around all these use case domains. And what we have done so far is collected some of the archetypes of use cases like this, where you're constantly doing mass action in Ariba, or you're trying to get data into an Ariba system or get the data out of Ariba system. And together with our efforts with customer, as well as some of our system integrator partners, we've been able to define an initial set of use case that I would like to take a few examples through with help from Max. So Max, with that, I'll turn this over to you.
Great. So now we can take a look at some of these examples, and I can show you some videos of those use cases actually in action. So let me pull up my screen here. Okay, so you should be seeing the studio now. But before we dive into that, I'll show you just some example use cases so we can take a look at some of how the bot actually is running as it's going through Ariba. So first example that I want to show you is one that actually is going to be doing some RFP extraction. And so this is going to be an example of going into Ariba and extracting information that wasn't available with an API at this point, but it's something that is necessary for some of these business processes. And there was a stakeholder who was looking to be able to extract these completed RFPs in order to use that information. And we were able to quickly develop this bot, which via a loop is able to go through and it will process all of the records that are there. It is set up to be intelligent and it will scale depending on the amount of RFPs that are available to be downloaded. So right now you can see that it says there are 18 documents available. And so the bot will actually see that as one of the elements that it's capturing, and it will use that to know how long to loop. And you'll also see that it's scrolling down. And so even though the list may go down to the bottom of the page, the bot is going to be scrolling to make sure that it's able to click those links. And then as you can see, it's downloading all of those as kind of no-named Excel documents. But by using our Excel connector at the end of this process, we're able to combine all 18 of those documents into one single workbook change the name of it to something that actually makes sense to the stakeholder, and send it off their way in an email using the Outlook extension. So this process that may have taken someone a couple of minutes at the beginning of their week to download all of these manually is now being done automatically and can be sent to them in an email so that they can receive that and do what they need to with the information that they've been able to extract. And now we can take a look at a little bit of a different example where instead of taking information out of Ariba, we'll actually be going in and uploading some information. So in this example, we're also going to be kind of showing a little bit of a multiple system automation where we'll be extracting data from ECC. So leveraging again that ECC connector in order to go in and download some exchange rates. And so in this use case, you'll see that now the bot is logging into ECC. It will go to the proper transaction code where it can extract those exchange rates. It will then save those locally, and then it will switch screens and it will go into Ariba in order to navigate to the proper pages there where it will upload that information. So kind of showing you the opposite side of things. So we had data extraction and now we'll see some data upload. And so as you can see, the bot is navigating through Ariba using some shortcuts and getting directly to the administration part of the page and is now on the upload section. Then types in the file path from the file that it had just created from the ECC. It's uploaded that and the process is over. So just as quickly as that, it was able to get a current exchange rate and then upload that into the system, which is a great way to keep that exchange rate up to date. And with the Cloud Factory, it could be scheduled to run as frequently as necessary, or to be run in an on-demand fashion if required. So now that we've taken a look at a few examples, I'd like to maybe show you around kind of how I'm approaching building an Ariba automated use case, as well as how I'm just approaching Ariba automation in general. And so I want to kind of show off some of the ways that I leverage the Cloud Studio and the advantages that we see by being able to reuse automations, as well as kind of build a modular workflow where you don't never have to rebuild the start fresh. And I'm losing my saying that I wanted to say, but you don't have to rebuild the same workflows ever. So when I'm approaching my design, I really like to make very individual workflows. So on the left, you can see that I have a few different automations here, starting with a login workflow, where I've taken inspiration from the best practices that we've seen in some of the pre-built use cases. So this is kind of modeled after the approach that was used in the SAP Logon pre-built bots. And so it's able to have a little try catch. And this will actually enable it so that if it does log in and it sees that this screen is still logged in, it will just continue on without an issue. And then by building this as just an individual workflow that's just for the Ariba login, that then allows me to utilize that in additional workflows, like just a small one here where it's going to be navigating me to the PO search field. I'm able to leverage that login workflow and then just add on the additional workflow steps to navigate me to the PO search, which then will enable me to build a workflow like this, where I'm looking to do some changes to purchase orders. And so I can start off with all of the automation and workflows that I need to be able to get to the PO searching session of the Ariba, and then it will go through and do the proper next steps in order to open up a purchase order and make the changes there. I really like to take this approach because you don't have to continually build the same workflows over and over. And this also can be leveraged by colleagues by saving this project as a package. So if I want to be able to extend this use beyond just this project, I can actually save this as a package, and then my teammates can go into the dependencies and they can import it and use my workflows as well. So my whole team could benefit from all of the automation that I've started to build in my project. And then we're not working on building the same pieces ever. We're always just continuing to add. that also then allows you to have a really robust workflow for certain pieces, where if you can have your team working on multiple projects, but then using maybe the same login workflow, we can work to really improve that login workflow and then leverage that work across multiple workflows. Something that I think is really valuable with the Cloud Studio and how easy it is to share workflows across different projects. Now I'd like to just take a quick look at the capture side of things and show you some examples of some of the advanced features that I've been using to capture the different pages within Ariba. So to get started, let's take a look at the PO search page, which can involve quite a few different elements. And as you can see, I've already started off and I have 2 different captures for the screen. That's because once you find a search and you get a result, the page is very similar. So I'm able to leverage having 2 different captures for the same page in order to identify all the elements I need. So first we can take a look at this side, which is going to be the search page before we actually get any results. And on this, I'm leveraging some of the advanced features like using the different parts of the tree, where I'm able to identify that I want to work on this input field, which is a text type of input field. And the way that I identify it is actually by finding this piece within the table where it has the order ID. So it's associated with that table row right next to it. So this is a great way to identify an object that when you first click on it, it may not have the right amount of captured data. I can actually then connect it with a piece higher up in the HTML tree in order to properly identify it as being the text box that goes alongside with that order ID text. You can then see this again with the date field, where again, I've captured the table row, which is then able to identify the name. And now I have a great robust element capture here that I can use in my workflows later on. And then, as I mentioned, I was able to capture actually a second capture within the same screen. The reason that I did that was because all of these elements on the top here are going to stay the same as the second part loads. And so if I capture that as a separate page, it may actually cause issues where it's seeing those 2 pages and isn't sure which one it is. But by doing this, they actually kind of work together, where if it sees this page or it sees this capture, it will identify it as being the PO search page. And so then once I move over here, we can see that some of the elements are no longer available, but I can now see that the search order result is there for me to click on. And I've captured that by just using a partial string for the purchase order, since all of the results that I have will start with a purchase order. And so I can now leverage that in all of my other workflows. And again, with the kind of shareability and the way that you can turn a project into a package and share that with your teammates, now all of these captures are also could be shared with my teammates. So if they want to go and build a project that is leveraging some of these pages, they don't have to go and capture them themselves, as they can just leverage the work that I've done already to capture these, which is an encouragement to make sure that I do a nice robust capture and provide something that will be usable across a variety of workflows for my colleagues that are maybe building automations using this as their foundation. Does anyone have any questions around kind of how I've approached this modular workflow? I'm just going to check the question section real quick.
Yes, there was already a question and while you were presenting from Prashant. Here, username and password are hard-coded in the Ariba automation to log into the application. Are the parameters maintained as environment variables for security purposes or hard-coded as string variables in automation?
Yeah, so right now I'm actually using a test Ariba system. And so I have decided to hard code my username and password. However, I can leverage some environment variables in order to use those. So my plan actually is to use the environment variables once I deploy this, but for the testing process, I've decided to hard code them since it's not much of a security concern being a testing website. But if you wanted to be able to use the environment variables, the way that you would do that is you can quickly come here within the Manage Project Properties section, and you can create an environment variable where it may be the Ariba password. and then you can choose that it's going to be the type of a password, which will give it some of the necessary encryption. And then once I create that, I can now actually go in, and if I create a set activity, I can then use that variable. And once I use that variable, it will actually then just ask me, it will then just ask me for what that value is when I begin the test. And then once I've deployed this as a package, I'll be able to go into my environment and actually set that value there. But that's actually why I've decided to just hard code it for the time being, was so that when I run a test, I have the password just already in there, because otherwise it would ask me to provide the password there. And so that's kind of how you could approach using the environment variables. But in an instance like this, where I'm using a test system, I feel comfortable to just hard code the password temporarily.
Thank you. Perfect. There is a general question about the trial Cloud Studio version of SAP Intelligent RPA. I don't know if it fits here, or if we should have this later on. Sathya, did you have a look?
Yes, I think later on. Yeah.
Okay, we will have a look into this later on. Another question: while executing an unattended bot of all of sudden something happened, like connection to the factory of agent lost. In this case, how to handle the scenario? Max, can you answer this one?
I think I'm going to defer that one to Julian, if that's okay, for when we
so,
get to his section.
Yeah, so maybe we can wrap up the Ariba part. I have a few things I wanted to share, and then we can turn it over to these general questions to
perfect.
Julian. Yeah. All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
So
Okay,
Max,
great.
are there other content you wanted to share?
No, so I was just going to wrap it up. That's been a brief overview of kind of how I've been approaching Ariba projects within the Cloud Studio in order to leverage the advantages that we have of being able to share our projects and be able to share the workflows with your teammates.
Awesome. So there are maybe three things I wanted to call out based on what Max shared. One is the connectors and the capabilities we already have. We have kind of built an expertise and specialization around the best way to apply them on Ariba. But we are interested in taking that to the next level, which is creating potentially a SDK that would more smartly capture all the elements and the fields that you need to work with Ariba in a more seamless fashion. So I get asked the question a lot on, what if I'm already using another RPA tool? Why should I look at RPA from SAP? So my answer to that is, we are giving a great choice, an option for our customers. And I personally believe that if you want to create most robust automation layer, you need to know how the underlying application works. So in this case, that is exactly what we are doing, following the work we did by creating an SAP GUI connector. We are similarly working to get a deeper knowledge of how Ariba UIs are set up, as well as Ariba comes with a very rich set of APIs. So what is the best way to consume those APIs, discover them, and manage them when you build a use case that may be best addressed with existing APIs on the Ariba side. So more on that is to come soon. But at the same time, the list of use cases we shared earlier, there is a great opportunity for the community members to engage with us in the product team to share your feedback on which one of those scenarios, or if there are any other scenarios that you would like us and build and make it available through our bot store. So with that, one last thing I would like to just point out is the use cases we reviewed today and other use cases. We have created a specific blog section where Max has already published all the detailed steps he has gone through to create some of the content, as well as the experience that many of our partners went through in creating their content. And this is available through the SAP the blogs series specific to Ariba. So I would encourage you to review that and also reach out to us if you have any questions or ideas on how we can make Ariba content available. With that, I'll turn it over to Svea yourself.
Yes, thank you. So I guess, I mean, there were more questions. There was one question in the chat, and maybe you can have a look into this directly also. So it's from Fabian. We use a RPA to make task in SLP for the supplier profile. The RPA roboter works for more than 1 hour to do all the tasks. The RPA is clicking on the website, but get after 30 minutes message to log out. How does Ariba recognize that an RPA working in the system does not get the message to log out? How can we handle this logout message with RPA development? So maybe you have an answer to that one.
Yeah, this will be our teamwork. Maybe Julia and I would request some expertise from yourself as well. But the key here is the second part of the question on how does Ariba recognize that an RPA is working? Actually, it doesn't. And this is why I specifically mentioned just a few minutes ago that to create a robust automation layer, you need to have an understanding of how the underlying application works. So one of the thoughts that we have in coming up with specific Ariba specific SDK is having capabilities that will recognize the smart way to wait for the Ariba system to respond, and have those provided as a prepackaged content so that as a user, you don't have to play around and figure out how much weight limit to set or how to kind of best interact with the application, because we would have captured the behavior on your behalf through an SDK or as a connector. But what you could potentially do in the meantime, maybe Julian, if you want to engage and help answer this question.
Yeah, sorry, I was mute. So this is a tricky question on this one. I'm not sure to understand. So you are using Ariba, right? And after 30 minutes of using Ariba, you have a logout message. I'm pretty sure that in these 30 minutes, you don't do anything because you know, when you are working on Ariba, you should not have a message logout after 30 minutes. So maybe during these 30 minutes, there is the bot doesn't do anything. But I think this question deserves more, let's say, detail to know more how works the bot. That's it for me.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I mean, if we have time at the end and you have additional questions, Fabian, we can just unmute you and then we can start the conversation. But at this point, I would like to hand over to Priya, because yeah, we will cover more questions here. And Priya, do you want to start? Do we have a little introduction?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So myself, Priya, I'm from the RPA adoption team. I have Julian from my team. So both of us would be answering the community FAQ. So we have collated some of the frequently asked questions and also showing some of the best practices. And simultaneously, we have some bot examples, not only the pre-built bots, but also from development perspective, we have some of the bots. Not sure how many of the community members are aware of it. So even I want to show those bots. Yeah, so I'd start the session now. So let me know when you're able to see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. So first thing is I want to show how do we capture the SAP GUI pop-ups in Cloud Studio. So I'm going to an application. So I want to show a GUI pop-up. So this is actually a Windows pop-up where we have to define the download location. So I've seen most of the developers asking the question that how do we capture this pop-up? So one of the best practices, this is actually a Windows pop-up. And when you're developing a GUI automation, it's always advisable that you don't shift between the UA automation and GUI automation. So to convert this pop-up into a SAP GUI pop-up, which defines a download option. So what you can do is I'll just close this now. I'll show you how do we have it convert this into a pop-up, GUI pop-up, which asks for the, so we go to this GUI settings and action, script recording and playback. So I start the recording now. Okay. So if you see here, right, when you do this option, you would get a SAP GUI pop-up where it requests for the file to download or upload. So you can do it in this way. So what happens is when you do it in this way, there will not be any switch between a UI automation and GUI automation, and your bot executes faster. So now once you have this, I will stop the recording and then close this pop-up. Okay. So after stopping the recording, what you can do is you can open, once you have stopped this recording, again, what happens is the old pop-up comes up. So when you want to capture it, you start this. I get this old pop-up, GUI pop-up. I go to my Cloud Studio and then I go to the applications. So add the screen here. So you can directly capture the screen here in this way. So when you click on capture, so you can directly capture the screen and use in your automation. And the other thing which I want to show you here is, especially when you have this file option, upload and download option, what happens in GUI is it asks for this. I'll stop the record now. This is the playback of the GUI thing. I'll close this. So you even notice this allow or deny pop-up. So if you see here, right, the different download location. So most of you would have seen this screen where the system is asking you to whether allow to upload or download this file. So to avoid this pop-up, what we can do is you have to go to your SAP logon settings. You can still capture that pop-up, but it's always advisable that since it's only a setting which has to be done, you can go to the options, security configuration, open security configuration here, and you have requested for ask. So you can directly say here allow. So when you say allow, then that pop-up doesn't come up. Okay, so I'll just, as of now, just cancel it and show you that pop-up once here. Go to the recordings here. So I'm starting this one. Start recording. Otherwise, you would not see the GUI pop-up. You have to start the recording and then double click on this. I enter some file here and when I click on continue, I get this allow pop. So now if I'm doing the customization here in the logon pad setting, this pop-up is not appearing now. I go to options and say allow, apply and click on OK. Okay, so when you log off and log in again, then this pop-up doesn't come up. So these are the two best practices, especially when you want to capture the pop-ups for the download application. So one we have seen is how do you convert your Microsoft Windows pop-up, upload. How do you do the settings to make sure that your pop-up is not coming, allow pop-up, security pop-up doesn't come up. So let's go to the automation now. Okay, I'm going to the automation now and I'm going to show you the other best practice. If you're opening the GUI transaction if you want to execute your GUI bot in unattended mode, one of the best practice is to use the execute command where you can directly enter your SAP, this shortcut, the system details, username, and then password. So it avoids the clicks, especially in unattended mode. This is recommended in unattended mode. Okay, And now I want to show you another thing. So these are some of the best practices when you record SAP GUI screens. Let me try to execute this bot once. Let me log off. I'm closing this. So since now my bot, I have made sure that I have captured all this screens. Okay, so I have this report thing. Okay, I didn't even define this logon screens because I've used this execute command where I've directly entered the shortcut, and this is the best practice in unattended mode. I have defined my download location here where I converted into this GUI popup. Okay, and now I go back to my automation and execute it. So you would not even get the allow pop-up now because I have done the settings. The system opens, enters a transaction. You see the file here where we've got the GUI pop-up and we have uploaded the file. So we converted into GUI pop-up and also you didn't get the allow pop-up here. Okay, so let's come back to the other next things. So importing and exporting the packages. Okay, before that, I'll even show you one thing here. So does anyone have an idea that when do we do a trigger, right? I'm going to create a package out of this, and when I create a trigger, I see that my attended mode trigger is disabled. So any idea why that is happening? Why your attended mode trigger is grayed out here? I generated the package. So let me go to the packages now. Okay, I just created it.
Priya, sometimes it seems that the internet connection is not stable. So at the moment, I cannot hear you anymore and the video is not moving. So I assume there is an internet connection issue. So I would recommend that you turn off your video, so maybe then it's more stable. And in the meanwhile, we can have a look into the Q&A maybe. So Julian, Max, Sathya, I hope you're still hearing me. And yeah, I think we lost Priya, now it seems so. So let us have a look into the questions then. So for example, Syed is asking, while executing unattended bot, all of a sudden something happened like connection to the factory of agent lost. In this case, how to handle this scenario? This is one I have already asked. Is anyone able to answer that one?
Yeah, about so agent lost. In fact, there is two things. Before anything, you have to be sure that you have the last version, because we have made some fixes about this, but we may have still some issues. So what you can do in this case, you can in the factory, you can add, you can create an alert when you have an agent disconnection, and you will receive an email, and you will be able to relaunch your agent. But honestly, we have made a lot of improvements in the latest version. Okay, we have solved a lot of issues with agent lost.
Perfect, thank you. So Priya, welcome back. So I think maybe you should put off your video because the internet connection wasn't stable. Maybe it's better without video then. And in the meanwhile, we have started to answer some questions from the Q&A. So if you want to go ahead, then you can move ahead now.
Yeah, I'm just trying to switch off my video. Yeah. Okay. Is it audible now?
It's good. Yeah, I can hear you good.
Yeah, thank you. So I have asked a question like now I'm able to, when I deploy this project, I generated a package. And when I try to do this, I would see that my API, okay, I don't want to reply to previous one. I would see that the attended mode is grayed out. Okay, so there are two reasons for this. So we have not built a project pane for the project for our automation. And second one is if you don't have a sufficient quota, then your attended mode trigger that would be grayed out. Okay, so once you create a project pane and then deploy it again, I would see the attended mode available. So it's enabled again. Okay. Cancel it. So let me refresh it. Yeah, now when I add a trigger, it should be enabled because we have created a project pane. Yeah, so if you see now the attended mode trigger is enabled. So coming to the next questions, I have shown you how to trigger a SAP GUI app in unattended mode and the screen switch option. So it's same as the wait multiple option in your desktop studio. So there are cases where, especially during the logon, I've seen we have faced multiple things like if your application is already logged in, you can directly log into the application, or if the application is not logged in, then the home page comes up requesting for this logon application. So in that case, you can use screen switch for the logon page here. And suppose if the option is already enabled and if you already have logged into the application, the home page doesn't come up. So in those cases, you can use screen switch. So which is same as wait multiple. Since most of the community questions had that how do we switch between the screens instead of wait multiple, which was in desktop studio. So this is the answer for that. And the next one is attended mode disabled. So I've shown you how do we enable the attended mode. So two things is, one is this, you have to create a project pane, and second one is make sure that you check your quota. And the bot stores samples for the bot development. So if you have time, maybe I'll execute this bot and show it to you. So let me go to the bot store and show you some of the examples for the developers especially. So you click on Cloud Studio, and if you come to learning, I've seen many questions in the community which they have asked for web service calls. You see in the learning content here, okay, we have many many bots already available where you can have a look at it and check what exactly are the ways how it has been done. Suppose if we take this, as I said, right, web service best practices. So you can see how it has been developed. So I've already acquired this. Otherwise, you can click on acquire. So as soon as you acquire, if you come to your packages, you would see this. I have this file, web services. So web services best practices. So you can acquire this and it would be available. You can save this as new project. So once you save this as a new project, you will have a look at how the coding best practices, especially for the web service calls. So I would recommend all the community developers that you can have a look at these type of bots, especially from learning perspective. So you can see how everything is done. We have multiple best practices provided. Suppose if it is with URL, and then with how do you do with the posting of data, getting the data, headers, without headers. So we have multiple automations which we have suggested here. So bot is not only for the pre-built bot content, but also from learning perspective, you have multiple examples provided. Okay, I'll just take 2 more minutes to execute this screen switch application. So I'll close this. Now my CapEx request shows the login page here. Shows the login page here. Okay, so I'll just close this. I'll just close this now. Meantime, Julian, you can answer the questions there. I'll just go to the projects.
Okay. I will take the question from Alastair. You experience some several issues. Okay. Difficulties using certain automation. So okay. One thing. Yeah, the Cloud Studio is stable. Honestly, we have some little issues that we are working on, but be sure to use the last version, especially with the Cloud Studio. Be sure to use the last version, especially with the Cloud Studio, because we do a lot of fix on each release. Okay, but yeah, this is stable. We already have some customers that have a Cloud Studio project on the in production.
Okay, so as you can see, the bot has executed with the login. CapEx request has been executed with the logon credentials. So if I execute it second time, since I've already logged in, you would not, the screen would switch to the second page now. Since we already log in, it will directly go to the tile and then click on it. So in these cases, you can use screen switch activity. Yeah. These are some of the commonly asked questions in community, and if you have any Q&A here, we are ready to answer.
Yeah, thank you very much, Priya. That was really interesting. So I wanted to unmute one of the attendees, but I think he has left already. So let us have a look into the other questions here. Prashant is asking, for IBP Cloud login, there is an external button in Excel where users need to log on to IBP Cloud by entering user ID and password. Can we automate Excel button and log off with 2 different automations? Can someone take this question, please?
Yeah, let me think a little about this. One moment. There's an external button in Excel. Okay. Okay, so this is a button in Excel. Okay, it's doable, but it can be it can be difficult. You have to use UI automation to pilot Excel, and be sure to optimize your criteria, because if you don't do this, you will have some performance issues. But I'm not sure why you want 2 automations to automate this one. You can if you want, yes, but you can do this on the same automation.
Okay, I hope this answers the question. Thank you. Then we have, I'm trying to automate SAP Fiori app, for example, read data from Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, iterate all the rows and post it into SAP S/4HANA via SAP Fiori app. I'm able to read the data from Microsoft Excel spreadsheet with one bot with iteration. Another bot should post data which first bot has read. How can we access one bot data into another bot? Please guide.
Okay, about this, I recommend to create, let's say, a master project. And you, in the master projects, you will add some dependencies. So the dependency will be the first bot, and the second bot will be the bot will pass the data. With this, you are able to use the two different automation in your one project. So use dependencies. Before you have to share your dependencies, you will find all the documentation about this. I will send you the documentation.
All right. Thank you. Another question, how to run the bot on multiple agents? For example, how to provide access to run attended bots in different systems? How to make end users need to give access to run the bot, but must not be allowed to check the automation? How to enable them in environment and agent groups? So there are a lot of questions about this. Can you help here?
Yeah. So how to run a bot on multiple agents? So how to provide access to run attended bots in different systems. Okay, yeah. About this, so in attended bots, you can do all the agents can do their own automations. If you need to have some credentials to use, you have to use local credentials. We have just released, I think, a blog post, Priya. I'm pretty sure that we have a blog post about this on local credential, or we will publish the official documentation in the next release. So with this, you are able to.
I'll send the link now.
Yeah, thank you, Priya. So with this, you are able to set your credential on the local system. And with activities, you are able to retrieve these credentials and use it in the system. Okay, how to make end user need to give access? Yeah, exactly. To run a bot must be allowed to check automation. Yeah, this is exactly what I was telling. You have to use local credentials. How to enable them in environment and agent groups. Here, in this case, you just have to create an attended trigger and bind it on your agent group, and you just have to be careful with credentials and use local credentials.
Thank you. I think you have. I hope you have answered the question. So I hope the
Yeah, I hope
the asker
not,
was
yeah,
satisfied
if not,
with that.
don't hesitate to send a chat if I tell let's say a wrong answer.
Yeah, that is correct. Of course, you can use the chat, and here also Priya posted the blog post you were just mentioned, and I have to apologize for Fabian because I cannot see his name. I'm not sure if he's still there. If you want to raise your question, please write it in the chat, because it seems for him the Q&A is not accessible. Also, I do not see him here in the participants window. So I'm sorry for that, Fabian. So maybe you can write your question in the chat and we will take care of that immediately. Until then, we have another question from Syed. How can we scroll down web page from top to bottom? Which activity we can use here for scrolling web page?
Okay, I will take this one also. In fact, in most of the case, you don't need to scroll. You have to scroll only if the page is an Ajax page that loads the content when you scroll down. But if you are in this case and you need to scroll down to have all the content, you will have to use custom scripts, because for now we don't have any. I think we don't have any activity for the web pilot to scroll down. So you have to declare the element to scroll and use a script item with a little JavaScript to scroll down.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me check. Yeah, so there is no question from. Oh, here it is. It is the same question as before. How does Ariba recognize that an RPA working in the system does not get the message to log out? How can we handle this logout message with RPA development? I use the browser and have no option for raising hand. Okay, yes. Okay, those two questions here are in the chat. I think I have already read them earlier. So is any one of you able to answer the questions about the Ariba?
Yeah, I think we need more detail about the logout message. The system does not get the message to log out. Yeah, we need more detail about this, because I'm not sure to understand what is the message to log out.
Okay, and unfortunately I cannot unmute Fabian because he's not showing up here in my attendee list. So maybe you would connect with Julian in the SAP community. If you follow Julian and he will follow you back, Fabian, then you can exchange with him direct messaging. Or because it seems to be more detailed, you can also use our community@sap.com email address, and I will forward this email then to Julian. So the email address is community, but this is only an exception. Of course, every other question should be used and or should be asked in the SAP community. And I have posted the link here in the chat as well. So yeah, it's possible to follow the tag in the SAP community, and then you can raise your question there. Or Fabian, for you, I have posted the link to the SAP community inbox, and I will forward that email to Julian. All right, everyone. So we are at the top of the hour. Thanks very much to our presenters for having been part of the SAP community call today. And also a big thank you to all attendees. A lot of attendees have been able to stay until the end of the calls. Thank you very much. Sorry for the technical issues we had during the call, but I think all questions have been solved. So thanks again, and I hope to see you all in one of the next SAP community calls. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you, and bye-bye.